I'm Alfonso Winker.
And I'm Trina Olson. And together, we're the co-founders of Team Dynamics.
And this is Behave.
Welcome back to another special episode of Behave. Make sure, if you're not already, that you have subscribed, because as you may have noticed, we are putting out content more regularly than our every other Wednesday schedule, because we are in the middle of the COVID-19 global pandemic that is impacting work in a major way and impacting our lives every moment of the day. And so we are excited to actually bring sort of a personal episode, because Alfonso and I have been talking with each other about what we've been noticing about how our patterns of work have been changing, what we've been noticing about what we're learning from this moment, and even already starting to have some conversations about what we want to let go of and stop moving into the future, what we want to tweak or do differently, how we're getting creative, and what we're learning that we want to keep with us as we move forward. Alfonso, it's been so life affirming for me to get to talk to you so many times a day. Maybe we should describe for folks the last time we saw each other in person and what happened.
Okay, so Trina and I both see a chiropractor who keeps a very small practice out of her house. And she's been doing a great job of like wiping everything down and sanitizing it and making sure there's only one of her clients in at a time. It just so happened that Trina and I both needed some chiropractic love for some neck and back pain that we were having. And Trina was also thinking about doing some hair maintenance for her head and asked me if I would bring my clippers with me because we were going to overlap in the parking lot. And so what we got to do was roll down our windows, say hi to each other. Trina put the back window open and I tossed my box of clippers and attachments into her back seat. We didn't touch. She wiped down the whole box when she got home, but it was an interesting moment where normally we would have like hugged and caught up and, you know, gotten a little bit of catch up time in the parking lot, but we were being conscious not to do any physical touch or break the 6 foot apart rule. So it's pretty silly to watch us on that side street in St. Paul outside of someone's house tossing wall clippers from my car to her car.
Thank you for painting the picture. And just so folks can complete the picture in their head, good news, bad news. I watched a YouTube tutorial and did my first ever home fade. The good news is I feel so much better. The bad news is if you got close, I think you'd really be able to tell that it was my first time. But I think I'm going to have time to sort of perfect. And even just that little example is an example of something that I and you and us together did differently, meaning before the stay-at-home order, I would have gone out and bought myself clippers, but I needed to ask for help, and I knew that you were somebody who had them, and so it's just getting really interesting. It's getting personal. It's getting vulnerable to think about what it's like to connect with colleagues about meaningful stuff, and to also be in relationship in potentially some new ways that still maintain boundaries, but that might also sort of deepen relationships. So I'm curious, Alfonso, because through Zoom, I have sort of seen your workstation. I know that your laptop is set up on a box of scarves. I don't know why it's the box of scarves. Is it just because that's the right height?
It's the perfect height.
Okay. You're a standing desk kind of a guy. You have been for as long as I've known you, but you're sort of at your kitchen. What have you been noticing about how you are working differently, about what is newly on the table, about what is newly off the table, about how you've been approaching surviving a pandemic while also trying to do some work on the side?
Yeah, so I want to start by just appreciating that you were pointing out the fact that even as people who know each other well and have worked together for years, we are having to get more vulnerable and renegotiate and negotiate things over again. And so this is that invitation for everyone listening to remember that everything you thought you knew about the folks that you worked with still might be true, and some of it may have changed. And so there are three things that have always been true about me and are changing that I'm learning about myself that I think it's important for folks to know. So I am somebody who I don't do email in batches. So I sort of just like check my text messages and my email throughout the day. I check my social media throughout the day. And that really works for me. So I'm generally someone who is like fairly caught up on like my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, my two email accounts, what's coming in on any of our web forms. Maybe that's not what the productivity people say you should do, but I'm just a like regular checker of my phone. I think a lot of it has to do with my age and also being an extrovert. I have found that in this moment where there is an abundance of checking in, which I love, and people are really doing connection through text, Facebook message. My best friend Ryan even joined TikTok. And so it's just like there's more stuff coming from more people more regularly. So for me, it's actually meant that I have now become a turn my phone over face down person.
That's totally new. I don't know that I've ever seen you do that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's weird for me. And I'm like, I can't because I'm never going to get anything done. And all I'm going to do is like think about other people's stuff and not my own. The second one is I think about my brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad a lot. Fairly close with them. We text every day. I see somebody from my family at least once a week. And I'm thinking about them for different reasons. My sister, because she is an essential worker, she's a grade school teacher. So she's been doing a little bit of meal delivery and supply delivery to the young people that she works with on the east side of St. Paul. And now she's had to become uh, backup IT for the young people that are trying to figure out how to use their Chromebooks at home and be learners who are under the age of 15. So I'm just thinking about all the different roles that teachers already have to play. And now on top of it, she has to be this person that is helping a generation of poor and working class kids of color figure out how to learn online. So I'm thinking about my sister in that way. My brother has a brain injury from a stroke and he lives in a group home. And when you live in a group home, that means there are workers there. So he is in fairly good health. He doesn't have a compromised immune system, but it's just weighing on me the idea that like different vendors and workers are in and out of there. So his level of exposure might be a little bit higher. And then, of course, my parents, who are both in fairly good health, but happen to be in that age range. So I'm just thinking about my people. And I have a lot of privilege in the fact that we have this job and I can really, really stay home in this way. And a lot of my job hasn't changed. And then I'm really missing my commute. So I thought when we were heading into this and I kept saying to my roommate Jeffrey, we work from home all the time. We're going to be fine. But the truth is probably about once a day I would leave my house for something. And so I'm remembering that I like driving alone. I know it's not environmentally friendly. I've got to work on that. But I like driving alone. And part of what driving alone for me does is it allows me a reset. So I'm having to figure out new ways to do breaks and travel time because of the way that our work is organized. I used to just get random bursts of 20 and 30 and 40 minutes in the car going between places in the cities or across the state that I'm not getting right now. And so I'm trying to figure out what does commute time or break time look like?
That's so interesting to hear about as somebody who's worked near or next to you for a long time. I'm curious of those three things of, your family just feeling really present in a different way and sort of your worry, anxiety, and empathy just up, that loss of the commute and just, that noticing, as well as newly navigating all of this sort of incoming digital information. So thinking about turning your phone over and having it farther away. What about that? Are you feeling like you wanna keep moving forward, or are you just conscious of what it's feeling like sort of today and how it's impacting your work?
I think that I'm not yet ready to make any commitments, and I'm not being dishonest with myself about the fact that we're not going to quote go back to normal. I think
Right.
for me, I'm really always going to remember my commutes and that sort of transition time, and how do I ritualize and sort of make almost Sabbath out of my transition and commute time. I didn't realize how much recharge those were for me. I'm curious, Trina, what are you learning about yourself? What's sort of shifting or changing for you?
Great question. As you know, I sort of think in a web and batches. So let's go to break quick and I'll try to get my thoughts in order. And when we come back, I'll share what I've been noticing. So there's a lot that I've been noticing, and I've been trying to sort of keep notes around the house of even just what is sort of coming up for me. The stuff I guess that's landing on me this week is a little surprising, and I don't know if I've shared one or sort of all of these with you so far, Alfonso. So the first is I'm paying attention to sleep in a really different way. Sort of the first 2 weeks that we were all forced to be at home, I was sleeping more than I remember really ever sleeping in my adult life. I've just never been a sleeper inner, even when I was a young person or I was growing. I'm just sort of a like get up early kind of a gal. That has consistently been problematic because my bedtime changes a lot. So it's not that I'm getting the same amount of sleep every night. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is just listen to my body differently about how much rest do I need versus just working off of a calendar or a schedule. You know, a whole lot of us who spent time needing to commute to clients or to offices, you know, we're always working backwards from our first meeting time to the commute to the getting ready time to the breakfast, all of those things. And so I am sleeping in a little later than normal and also trying to find some days to not have to have an alarm in the morning to see if my body needs more, and that's not something I've ever really given myself permission to do. So that's weird. It makes me uncomfortable. It makes me nervous about my like productivity or stamina or something. I can get pretty self judgy pretty fast. But sleep is something I'm really paying attention to. The second thing that I've been focused on is I've been keeping a list of and sort of checking it off each day. If I spend some time outside, and it definitely is spring here in Minnesota, so it's ranging in temperature from like 28 to 68, depending on the time of day and the day. It's vacillating back and forth between snow, clouds, sun, and rain. It's doing its spring thing. But the other day, I reached out to one of our colleagues that I was having a meeting with, and I said, you know, are you able to take notes during this meeting? I think I would prefer to be on a walk than be on Zoom. I believe in my ability to pay actually better attention if I'm moving. And I've known that about myself, but it's just, I don't know why, it never occurred to me that that was really on the table as an option in the middle of a workday during regular circumstances, right? I wouldn't really leave the workspace unless it was to go and get food. Something about it just felt naughty to not be at a computer, or when somebody asks for a Zoom meeting to say, actually, could we do it a different way this time? It doesn't mean let's not ever Zoom, but it's, ooh, could we get out because it's supposed to rain later? And now I would like to take a walk while I talk to you. So it was a new kind of sort of permission that I asked for. My colleague met it sort of immediately and said, "Oh, yeah, of course, I'm here, so I'll take the notes." So I'm trying to notice and remember all the things that I didn't do, even though they've probably always been quote unquote allowed as behavior. And then another thing I'm noticing is, and I think I've known this about myself for a long time, but I haven't really done it in the same way. I respond really well to incentives, and those change each day, but I'm somebody who's always sort of worked in spurts. Like I've worked in big waves. That's how my energy comes. But I think as somebody who's been conditioned to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours and supposed to just be sort of consistently productive, that's never really been my flow or the way in which I'm most useful. And so now I will do things like I've got my to-do list and I'll say, you know, and once I get through it, I can start making those cookies I was planning on making, or I can watch that YouTube video that my sister sent, or I can do whatever else sounds interesting to me that day, which could be anything from going outside to laying down. So remembering that I can motivate myself. And again, I don't think it would have occurred to me in an office to watch a YouTube video or stop for a special treat. So it's just interesting to notice what's working for me sort of without judgment because I'm doing it by myself for now. So those are things I'm noticing.
There's something really exciting for me, for you as a manager and a owner of a company, that is this around sort of this theme of permission that I think we talk about multiple solutions all the time, and the idea that folks can get their work done however they need to. But I think it's important in this moment for managers who are listening to also model that, to really say, like, here's what I'm doing to be flexible. Because if as managers we're just bearing down and trying to do business as usual, our teams aren't going to believe us that we get to be different in this moment. So
Right.
are we saying flexibility, but then trying to keep everybody to all the same patterns?
Right. And you and I, I'm so grateful. We've had so many conversations about priorities, about goals, about the need to focus, and about quality. So for us, this is not about how many hours did I work, how many emails did I send. Neither for us are a good measurement that we got closer to our organizational goals. But did we actually have a powerful conversation? Did we have sort of a creative or mental breakthrough? Did we produce something that was needed? And or did we just take the thinking and writing time required to get sort of our thoughts in order? That's valuable too. So that focus again on quality and thinking, what are all the different ways I can get myself closer to high quality gives us permission and a little bit more wiggle room.
So, friends, we're curious, what are you learning about yourself in this moment? What patterns are you changing, shifting, adjusting, adopting? Send us a tweet at Behave Podcast on Twitter. You can always email us topic ideas, team@teamdynamicsmn.com. Make sure you're washing your hands, staying home, and making good choices. Thanks for hanging out. Blammo.
Blam-